is the 9916, and we talked about variation. Now we want to talk about that second point of antibiotic, or of natural selection. Do you remember what it is, looking at your notes? Second point is that the environment presents challenges to survival and reproduction. I usually sum these up in sort of common terms. So for number one, I say we're all different. Every population has natural variation. Everything's different. We're all different. For number two, the environment presents challenges to survival and reproduction. I'll let you think on how you might sum that up, and then we'll sum it up after we talk about it. So, what would be so challenging for a bacteria? Well, we said that there are a bunch of things they have to do to survive. So what would be their big challenges? And we have to think back to homeostasis. Challenges can include, I'm going to read this, and then I'll shut up and let you copy, then we'll talk a little bit. The environment presents challenges to survival and reproduction. For bacteria, these can include drying out. Remember, they have to stay wet. Getting too hot or too cold. They must maintain correct temperature in order to keep functioning, to reproduce, and to stay alive. Being attacked by the body of a host organism. Your body can attack those bacteria and kill them. Being attacked by larger organisms around them. Or being killed by chemicals in their environment. Aha! Antibiotics. I'll shut up and pause it and let you copy. Okay. So, drying out is a big deal for bacteria. And that is one of the ways we kill them. We said, what happens when you put salt on a piece of meat? Who here has made jerky? Sucks all the water out of it. You can do that to a bacterial cell. Does anybody here have someone? Do you have a wooden cutting board at home? Anybody? Okay. Have you ever heard anybody or seen anybody salt the cutting board? This is something my dad used to do. So if you cut chicken on a wooden cutting board, it's porous. You can get bacteria in the wood, and Dad would always salt the cutting board. It kills the bacteria that are on that surface. And so does alcohol. Alcohol does the exact same thing as salt. Who are my, you don't have to volunteer the information, but if you're an alcohol hand sanitizer junkie, your hands get really dry, don't they? Guess what alcohol does to cells? It desiccates them. That means it draws water out of them. It dehydrates them. Alcohol sucks up water. Alcohol absorbs water from the environment. It will absorb water from the air. It will also absorb water from cells that it's up against. So using alcohol on your hands is great. It dries out those bacterial cells on your hands and it kills them, but it also dries out your hands. And in the case of like Addie, poor little Addie in the hospital with this massive resistant lung infection, would rubbing alcohol to the interior of her lungs killed the bacteria? Probably. You can't really get resistant to alcohol. Sadly, it would have killed her too, because it would have desiccated the surface of her lungs. So, drying out is a challenge for bacteria. Getting too hot or too cold. If bacteria aren't at the right temperature, they start, really too hot, you kill them. Cook your hamburger to 165, you kill them. But even if you get them too cold, you slow down their growth. You slow down their ability to reproduce. Having one bacteria is not a big deal. Even of a really nasty, dangerous, disease-causing species. Who cares? One bacteria, so what? It's all the other bacteria they can make. It's when they reproduce that you have a problem. Why do we keep food in the refrigerator? Why do you keep food in the refrigerator? Why? To slow down their reproduction. Yeah. Because is there probably bacteria on the food surface? Yeah, of course there is. There's bacteria everywhere. We know that. If we know nothing else by now, we know that we are completely outnumbered. Keep that food cold, and they can't reproduce as fast. or at all. So it slows down their growth. It slows down bacteria. We say it retards bacterial growth. To retard something is to slow it down. You can retard spark on an engine. You can retard bacterial growth. So getting too hot or getting too cold is a challenge for bacteria. And we want to, frankly, for the bad bacteria, we want to challenge the behoozes out of them. We want to challenge them to death, really. We do. Being attacked by the body of a host. You're a host for lots of bacteria, good, bad, and indifferent. And your body is a fabulous machine that will attack bad bacteria that are starting to multiply and get out of hand. You send white cells. It's like, who here has played Pac-Man? Does anybody even know what that is? Okay, this is like the games of my childhood, and I don't even know if people know what that is. Okay, because this came out when I was in elementary school, because I'm ancient. I remember white blood cells getting compared to Pac-Man a lot. And they kind of are. White blood cells just gobble up bacteria that get in their way, among other things. So, that makes life hard for a bacteria. And there are some things, especially in marine environments and aquatic environments, out in the pond. There are probably some little teeny tiny microscopic animals that eat bacteria. Cool. I'm trying to remember what there's some organism that lives in the ocean, and it basically spins a snot web that catches bacteria. I mean, I know, it's horrible. I'm so sorry you have me before lunch. I don't know what's worse, before or after lunch. Anyway, the snot in your nose catches bacteria. That's what it does. That's its job. It traps bacteria before it can get into your lungs and infect your lungs. Snot is good at trapping bacteria. Hold. This organism in marine environments sort of sends out little stringers of snot that capture bacteria, and then it pulls them in and it eats the bacteria as a source of nutrients. So it spins this substance like a spider web and catches its food. Okay, but one of the big challenges that we present to bacteria, very much on purpose. So not, you don't sit there and think, oh, white blood cells, go. You don't control your white blood cells. You're not conscious of that. But you are conscious that, hey, I've got this nasty sinus infection. I'm going to the doctor. I feel like it's in my lungs. I'm getting a Z-Pak, and I'm going to start an antibiotic. I'm going to feel better. 48 hours, I will be a new human being. You know that. That's on purpose. You horrible, mean person. You're making life tough for bacteria that are making you sick. That's good, actually. You want to do that. That's not a bad thing. But the challenge to their survival is now this chemical that you're taking into your body to make their life miserable. So, we've got our little population. Let's see if they're still on my clipboard. There's our little population of bacteria. And you're making life tough on them. Go you. When I sum up this concept in simple terms, how would you sum that up in simple terms? The environment presents challenges to survival and reproduction. Here's how I sum it up. Man, life is tough. There are challenges to survival everywhere. Third point of natural selection. Individuals tend to make more babies than will live. You already have this. You don't need to copy this slide. Individuals tend to produce more offspring than will survive. This is not true for all species at this point. And later we'll talk about different reproductive strategies involving how many babies and how much energy you put into them. But individuals tend to produce more offspring than will actually survive. I'll read it, then I'll shut up and let you copy. How many babies does a bacteria want to grow up to have? All of them. Bacteria will just keep dividing as long as conditions are right. Bacteria require certain temperatures to reproduce, hence fever, hence refrigerating food. And bacterial populations can grow exponentially. Teaser that goes like this. You're given a choice. Somebody will either give you $1 million today, or they'll give you a penny today, and they will double your money every day for a year. Where are you? Which is the better deal? $1 million in hand, or they give you a penny today and they double your money every single day. Which ends you up with a bigger pot? Have you had this brain teaser? Okay. Well, think about it. You can discuss it with the person sitting next to you. Do whatever math you need to. Which one's a better deal? $1 million in hand, or penny today, double your money. So today you get 1 penny. The next day you have 2 pennies because we double your 1 penny. The day after that you get 4 pennies because we double the money you have. Which one's a better deal? Go, discuss. I forgot to hit the record button, but okay. So you all want to go with the penny. So you get a penny the first day. By the end of 2 weeks, you're getting handed $81.92. Let's see. Then we're up to $163.84, $327.68, 68, $655.36, $1,310.72, 15, 16, 17, 18. Hey, this is looking pretty good. This isn't looking so bad. I'm not even up to a month yet. And if you get to keep the sum of all of that, well, this is looking promising. Why are we talking about money and pennies and shit recording? Okay, so we're looking at this because we're talking about bacterial reproduction. Bacteria reproduce by splitting in half, which means they double. So do they double once a day? Oh no. Growth rates vary. Different bacterial species reproduce at different rates. Some bacteria can reproduce every few seconds. That means if you start out with 2 bacteria, within an hour, how many bacteria do you have? Bagillions. That's a made-up number, by the way. This is called exponential growth. So it looks like that. That's an exponential curve. Have you graphed exponential functions in math somewhere? Yeah. So you know what an exponential curve is. Now this is assuming that there's enough food for all of them, the temperature stays good for them, that everything for the bacteria is perfect. Hold on. And we know that life is tough. The conditions aren't usually perfect. So sometimes it's not really true exponential growth. And they talk about it, kind of tapering off at some point. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about population dynamics. But this is pretty alarming. And when you think back to the movie and think back to, again, poor little Addie and her lung infection and her staph infection overall. Do you remember one thing her mom said? I remember watching the sun come up from her hospital room and thinking, how did she get so sick so fast? She got so sick so fast because bacteria can grow exponentially. So they're capable of this kind of really rapid reproduction. Now there are some bacteria that are much slower reproducing. Tuberculosis is a bacteria that is the rise of multi-drug resistant bacteria in the world is a really scary thing. Do you know what tuberculosis is? A few heads are nodding. A lot of people are looking like, It's a lung infection. It's a chronic bacterial lung infection. Prior to the advent of antibiotics, people just died. It was a slow, painful death. People would hack up lots of blood, and they would die eventually. And of course, in that blood and that gunk that they were hacking up from their lungs, guess what was there? Bacteria, tuberculosis bacteria. So they would transmit the disease. And they would be sick for a long time and transmit the disease to a lot of people before they died. With the advent of antibiotics, tuberculosis became very treatable. But tuberculosis reproduces very very slowly, which actually makes it harder to fight in some ways. And we'll talk more about the example of tuberculosis. But individuals tend to produce as many offspring as they can reasonably produce, and a lot of them don't survive because life is tough. So for bacteria that are making us sick, we make life tough on purpose. Our body turns up the thermostat, basically. You get a fever, which slows their reproduction. We introduce chemicals to the environment that kill them, antibiotics. But they still have a lot of baby bacteria